Good morning, everybody. I'd like to start this video today by apologising for the previous vlog. Not so much what I said, because I don't regret what I said, I stand by everything I said, but my appearance. I look like the wreck of the Hesperus. It was a raw video, as you could tell. It was an impromptu, spur-of-the-moment video. I'd read something that had set me off. I picked up the camera and I filmed it. I hadn't brushed my hair, I hadn't a trace of makeup on, the camera wasn't at a flattering angle, and I played it back and I thought, oh my goodness me, you look dreadful. So I can only apologise to those of you with a sensitive stomach. At least you all know what I look like when I wake up in the morning. So yeah, I think if you got to the end of that, you were very brave. So as promised, I've made a bit more of an effort today. Well, actually, I'm going out later, so I thought I'd do a book video. Now, initially, I was going to pick my 10 favourite authors. So to pick individual books from particular authors, I find quite tricky. So I thought, no, I'll pick 10 authors. And then I started looking at my bookshelves and I thought, I can't pick 10. There's far too many. So I'm breaking it up and I'm going to do it over 3 different videos. So today we're going to do historical fiction, and next time I do a book video I shall do crime, and then the third one will just be general fiction that doesn't really fit either category. Some of them may cross over slightly, but as some of these actually are historical crime. But I'm calling them historical because some people like modern crime, they like procedurals and police and law and courtrooms and all that kind of thing. And obviously in the historical fiction crime, you don't get that. So some of these are actually historical crime. So get yourself a cup of coffee, cup of tea, whichever you prefer. I find this camera confusing. I want to look at the screen. When I look at the screen, that's what you see. And I have to remember to look in the camera, which is this tiny little hole. And I forget. So if I look to be squinting, probably because I am, because my eyesight's not very good these days, I'm not. I'm trying to remember. But I feel I should look at myself as I'm talking. But I need to look at, because I can't see what I'm doing. Anyway. We'll begin, otherwise this video is going to go on for about an hour. These aren't in any particular order. They're not alphabetical. They're not, my favourite is going to be I'm leaving the best one till last. And these are, it's just as I take them off my pile that's at the side of me here. So we're going to start with Edward Marston. Now, Edward Marston has written lots of historical crime. Some of them are set more recently than others. He did a series called The Railway Detective Murders. They're Victorian. These in particular ones that I like, I haven't read the Victorian Railway Murders. I'm sure they're very good. But these are what's known as the Domesday collection. I think it's called, but is it called the... Oh, it actually says on the bottom, author of the best-selling Railway Detective series. But these are the Domesday books. And this is number... Does it say on it what it is? Not sure which one it is. Doesn't really matter. I think it's number 5. And there are quite a few. Now, they are quite old. And I know you can't... I think that's why I ended up buying this, because I couldn't get it from the library. A lot of them are out of print now. This was reprinted. I don't know why they do that. There's a series of potentially, you could have 20 books. And they just reprint half a dozen of them. And you think, well, shouldn't you reprint the whole series? I don't know. I don't work in publishing. I never have. I only worked in libraries. So this one, 1996. Now, I don't know, was that when it was originally printed? Yes, first published 1996. So it isn't as old. I think the early ones were back in the late 80s, so they're a little bit harder to come by. I haven't read the full series yet. I'm still working my way through it. Because, as I say, they're not easy to get hold of, some of them. The library doesn't have them. I put them on my wish list to buy, but I don't have the funds, as does anybody, to buy lots of books. I'd love to go out and spend a fortune on books. but I don't, so I have a huge wish list. But I have read this one, and it's brilliant. And as I say, hence the name Doomsday. It is set after the Battle of Hastings, when William the Conqueror's king, and he started to write the Doomsday book. And he has, it says on the back, the two main characters in it are Ralph Dalchard, who's been a soldier and he fought at the Battle of Hastings, and Gervase Brett, who's a lawyer. And they are looking for irregularities. They're travelling around the country looking for irregularities in the Doomsday Book. People are not perhaps claiming they've got as much land as they said they had and things like that. And they stumble across crimes, bodies, what have you, and they investigate them and solve them. They're very good. I enjoy them very much. So I would recommend him, Edward Marston. Now, if I was a clever person when it comes to technology, I would be saying things like, oh, if you check under my bio or whatever they call it, I'll list all these books below the vlog. I don't know how to do that, so I shan't be doing that. So if you want to get a pen and paper, jot some down, be my guest. So the first one, Edward Marston, and I think any of his books, to be quite honest, are very good. So you've plenty to choose from as well. So that is that one. Now this one, my friend Ange and I, who worked at the library, love her books. Absolutely loved her books. And particularly this series. She has recently, just this year, brought the final one out in the series. They've been, I think the first one was in the 80s. And she's tied up all the loose ends in this last book. And they go from way back from, I think, is it round about the Battle of Bosworth, Plantagenets, right through to modern times, following a family. And they are brilliant, really are brilliant. Some of you will have guessed who I'm talking about. I am, of course, talking about Cynthia Harrod Eagles. And I think altogether there are 27 or 20, there might be more in the series. This is the first one. This starts, as I say, against the War of the Roses. It's called The Founding, and it's the founding of the family, basically. So they're known as the Morland dynasty, the series of books, because the family that it follows are called the Morlands. They end up being split all over. They end up with London Morlands and Yorkshire Morlands and American Morlands, and they end up all over the world pretty much towards, the later time. But it goes right through the Civil War, it goes through Industrial Revolution, the coming of the railways, it covers the First War, the Second War. That's where it ends pretty much at the end of the Second World War. The latest one's just finished. I do think she jumped quite big gaps in history. If I had to make a negative comment, so this one is the Wars of the Roses. This is the founding. And the next one, I think after this, it might not list it because, oh yes it does, was the Dark Rose. And that's right in Elizabethan times. So she's jumped like 100 years from this, which is around about 1485, right up to late Tudor times. And I think that's a shame because then after that, I think they're closer together. I think she could have got another couple in between, but maybe she felt there wasn't enough going on. But I mean, it's a dissolution of the monasteries and all that. Anyway, so but brilliant, brilliant books. So the original family are in Yorkshire, because that's where Cynthia Harrod Eagles is from. And I think that's what drew me to it at first, being from Yorkshire myself. And I just got pulled into it, and I just kept reading them. And my friend and I, Ange, we used to be constantly looking to see when the next one was due to come out, and whichever one of us found it first, oh, Ange, you need to, there's another one coming out next year, and oh, brilliant, I'm going to order it. So yeah, I would really, really recommend them. Very good indeed. Excellent, in fact. Now, I've chosen somebody here who, she's quite a contentious author in the sense that some people absolutely love her, some people don't like her at all, and some people are a little bit in the middle and think, yeah, she's okay, depending on what she's writing about. She isn't the most historically accurate, in my opinion. And I am one of those people who, because I like my history and I've studied a history, I do get a little bit annoyed when it isn't accurate. I think the main problem was when she sold the rights to some of her books and they were made into TV series by American production companies. And they changed a lot of it, and it wasn't accurate. And she was involved in making them. I was surprised that she didn't say, no, I don't think you should do that, because it's not true to the real story. I'm, of course, talking about Philipa Gregory. Now, I love Philipa Gregory. These are particularly good because these are just based in history. They're not based on real people. They're just fiction. So it's not as important that she's as historically accurate. This is part of the Wide Acre trilogy. The later ones she did a lot, as you know, about the Tudors, the White Princess, the White Queen. She did a Cousins War series all about the Plantagenets, and I thought they were brilliant. I really did enjoy them, but she isn't as strictly speaking accurate with her facts, I don't think, as some others are. In particular, I haven't got one of her books to show you, but I would also recommend Alison Weir. Now, Alison Weir is she's a doctor. I think she's a Dr. Weir. I think she's a qualified historian, and she's often on documentaries talking about. Well, I haven't said that. I think Philipa Gregory has been, but talking about history, she knows her stuff. She's written a lot of non-fiction books about history, so her novels are particularly strict and accurate when it comes to historical facts. These you to take a little bit more, but they're very good. They are very good. If you've no knowledge at all about the Tudors and the order they go in and what happened to the Cousins War, the Wars of the Roses, and what happened and the chronology of it, they're great for giving you a bit of background. Then dip into a bit, keep Google handy, and just keep thinking, who was he again then? And you'll get your facts that way, I think. But yeah, Philipa Gregory, I do like her very. And there's a lovely cover, very appropriate for November, isn't it? Look, all the poppies. Beautiful, isn't it? So yes, so I do like her very much. And also, no relation, as far as I'm aware, she's no relation. I do also like Susanna Gregory. She is historical crime mainly. She's done 2 series. This one is the Matthew Bartholomew, I believe, yes, series, which is set further back. They're set in the 1300s. They're set in Cambridge, in the university, or round about when the colleges and the university was just starting, really. So there's a lot of you don't need to know about the different colleges, but it's interesting if you want to know about which colleges were founded when and which are the oldest colleges and things like that. Whereas the other series is Thomas Challoner series, and that's actually set in Restoration England, so they're that little bit more recent. It's not exactly recent, but these in particular are excellent. This one, A Deadly Brew, is the 4th one, and she's written a lot. I mean, this one was written, doesn't tell me all the others because it's all just lists the ones that came before this. This is an ex-library book I bought in the sale, actually. 1998 this was first published, and she's still writing them now, so there are a lot of them. So again, I highly recommend. I need to speed up a little bit. Excuse me while I just have a drink of coffee. So if I don't speed up, we're going to be here all morning. One of my absolute favourites, and I've said that about every author so far, haven't I? Sorry, but I love my history. Look, Barbara Erskine. Oh, I love Barbara Erskine, and I love her books because look at the size of it. But they don't feel like, when you're reading it, you think, oh, I couldn't get through that. You could, trust me, because you'll rattle through it. I love her books because they are I think they're known as time slip these days, time slip novels. So you have something in the present and something in the past, and often the two converge, and the character in the present sees visions of things that have happened in the past associated with the place that they are in. Her most famous novel, which I'm ashamed to say I don't have a copy of, as I would have used that instead of this one, I need to get one, is Lady of Hay, set in Hay on Wye. And that is absolutely brilliant. This one, just as good, really. A lot of these are set, as is Lady of Hay, on the Welsh marches, on the borders between Wales and England, Shropshire, around that area, because that's the part of the world that Barbara Erskine herself lives. And this is particularly about Wales. This is a Welsh princess. But it's brilliant. It's a long time since I've read it. I'm having to look at the back now because I can't remember a lot about it. But I just know every one of hers is brilliant. And she's just brought one out this year as well that I've read. I might do a little mop-up book video either in the new year or just before the new year about my favourite books I've read this year. I probably won't have copies of many of them, but her latest book, was brilliant. I can't remember the name of it, but it was brilliant. I highly recommend her. Then another old favourite, we're going back a little bit in time now. We're still around. Not she isn't still around, but her books are. Ellis Peters. I like Ellis. This is The Holy Thief. This is one of the Brother Cadfael books. So again, it's historical crime. Some of you may remember the fabulous TV series back in the 80s that they did with Sir Derek Jacobi as Cadfael. I have them on DVD. I still watch them and I still enjoy them. They're brilliant. The description of Brother Cadfael in the books isn't a lot like Sir Derek Jacobi. He's shorter and tubbier and probably older than Sir Derek Jacobi was back then when he made it. More the age that he is now, I would have thought. Maybe a little bit younger, probably in his 60s, which was considered quite elderly then. He's an ex-soldier who has taken holy orders. He fought in the Holy Land in the Crusades. And so he's lived out in the world. He's a man of the world. He knows a little bit about what's going on. And much more so than a lot of the other holy brothers who are very pious and very, offended by everything worldly. Whereas Cadfael, he takes it in his stride and he's happy to go out there, out of the enclave of the monastery. The setting in Shrewsbury, again, on the Welsh borders. Brilliant. I really enjoy them very much. She did write other books. She didn't just write Cadfael. She has written other things, and she also wrote under a different name, a pseudonym, of Edith Pargeter. I haven't read any of the books Edith Pargeter wrote, but I'm sure they'll be just as good. She did write about, was it Simon de Montfort? Bloody Field by Shrewsbury, I think it was called, something like that. And it was about the Battle of Shrewsbury when Simon de Montfort was killed. So yeah, again, historical, but not a crime as such. So yeah, Brother Cadfael, very good. Another quite old one, but brilliant one. I haven't read everything she's written, but I have read this. Anya Seton. This particular one is about Catherine, obviously, as it says, who was the mistress of Edward. No, she wasn't. She was the mistress of John of Gaunt. It's through her that we have all the trouble with all the Beauforts, because they were his direct descendants. And she was John of Gaunt's mistress, and she gave him 3 children, but the children were legitimate. And when John of Gaunt's son became king, he legitimised her children, but they weren't. Technically, today we would just think it doesn't matter, it's irrelevant. But back then it meant quite a lot. And the descendants of her children included Margaret Beaufort, of course, who was the mother of Henry VII, who became king. That's why people said he'd no right to the throne. He was from an illegitimate line. But anyway, Catherine, it was a very interesting story because she's one of those characters in history that most people haven't heard of and don't know anything about, yet she was the great-great-grandmother, or I don't know how many greats, of kings. You know, her great-great-grandson became Henry VII. So she was an important person, but nobody knows much about her. I've actually went to see her tomb in Lincoln Cathedral. Is it in Lincoln Cathedral? Yes, I'm sure it's in Lincoln Cathedral. Yeah, so she's just become a bit of a footnote to history, I suppose. And but yeah, she was just brought to the court and became a favourite of John of Gaunt, and he had 3 wives. He did marry her. He did eventually marry her. She was his 3rd wife, but by then she'd already given him the 3 children. So I suppose technically that's when they became legitimate, but they weren't, if you see what I mean. But it's a very, very good book. And it's ready. I need to reread it. It's due for a reread. Mind you, I think all of these books are due for a reread, and I just can't possibly get through them all. Another wonderful author. This book I haven't read yet. I think it must be one of the few of her books I haven't read. Anne O'Brien. She's another lady from Yorkshire. She's an ex-school teacher. I think she's brilliant. She's written lots of very accurate, as I understand it. I'm not an expert, I'm not a professional historian, but I think they're very accurate historical novels. This one, as the name probably gives a clue, The Devil's Consort. And I can't believe I haven't read this because it's about Eleanor of Aquitaine, who is one of my heroines. I think she was a woman ahead of her time, Eleanor of Aquitaine. She went to the Crusades when she was married to the French king. She did things that women didn't do back then. And she ran this country when her son, Richard, The first was king because he spent all his time over in the Crusades. She kept her son John when he was king on a tight rein as much as she could, but then she passed away. So she outlived, some of her children, two of her husbands. I thought she was brilliant, and this is about her because he was known as he was the devil, and she was his consort. She was the devil's consort. So yeah, a wonderful person, Ellen of Aquitaine, historical character, and a wonderful author. So I really recommend any books by Anna Brien. It's Anne with an E. They're all brilliant, all of them. And this is about the only one that I haven't read. It actually says on here on this gold stamp, better than Philippa Gregory. Well, yes, I would say she is. I mean, I like Philippa Gregory, but I think when it comes to historical accuracy, I think she's a lot better, personally. I suppose I technically have left my favourite till last, almost till last. So I lied when I said I hadn't done that. It wasn't deliberate. It wasn't deliberate. But this is my most favourite novel ever. Historical novel. I'm trying to build up the tension, can you tell? Are you ready? The Sun in Splendour, Sharon Penman. Really, really sad that she died a couple of years ago. She wasn't all that elderly, and she had quite a lot of books left in her, I'm sure. But this book is fabulous. I love this book. This is quite a tome, but it is the history in novel form of Richard III. This was written back in the 80s, I think. Let me see. 1982. It was first published in the USA because she's American, Sharon Penman. So it's a long, long time ago. It's way before all the hoo-ha with Richard III, before he was popular, before people realised that he wasn't the wicked king everybody seemed to think he was, that he didn't have a withered arm. Yes, he did have a crook back. He had scoliosis, but not severely and not enough that people wouldn't notice it. But obviously, people within the court knew, and that's where all the rumours and what have you started. But no, he was, or would have been, I think, a good king, had he been allowed to be a good king. He had lots of issues, and I think he had mental health issues at the end, lost his son, lost his wife, and I think he'd nothing left to lose by the time the Battle of Bosworth came along. I think he thought he was a deeply religious man, and I think he thought when he went into the battle, let God choose. Either I come out of this the victor and Henry dies, one of us is going to have to die, or I lose and I'll lose my life, in which case, c'est la vie. And I think that's why he made the famous murderous dash down Ambion Hill when he saw Henry and thought, it's you and me now, kid. One of us is gonna die. And unfortunately, it was Richard. And I think things would have been very different had he lived. He did a lot of good things in the short 2 years that he was king, to do with the law and the rights of the ordinary common man in the law, in the eyes of the law. He was very good as protector when he was Lord Protector up in the north of England. He was much revered, much loved up in the north of England. And I think that's why he wasn't liked when he had to go down to London, down to court, because they didn't know him, they didn't like him, they couldn't understand him. He had a Yorkshire accent. But I think he would have been a good king if he'd have been allowed to be king for longer. That's my opinion. I'm not a Tudor fan. And I don't think he killed his nephews in the Tower. I think Margaret Beaufort had something to do with that, but that's just my theory. And we could go off at a tangent and talk about Richard III and the Prince in the Tower for another hour, couldn't we? Probably. We're not here to talk about that. But this is brilliant. If you don't know a lot about Richard III, if your interest in him has been piqued by recent events, and he's been, they found his body, and the other people have been on TV in the documentaries about what happened, and did one of the princes survive, and if you're just slightly interested and think, well, what kind of man he really was. Obviously, this is a novel. This is Sharon's interpretation of what he was like. She doesn't know any more than I do. But this gives you great background. It gives you background about his brothers. It gives you background about his parents, his relationship with Warwick, who was his mother's nephew, was his cousin. And it's interesting, and it's an easy read. You can read. It looks like a sort of book you pick up off the shelf and think, oh, gosh, no, I couldn't cope with that. Again, like all good books, like Barbara Erskine's books are all fairly thick. You will get on with it and you will work your way through it. Trust me. brilliant. Best history novel ever so far. Because obviously I haven't read every history novel and probably never will. And I'm going to finish on a slightly personal note. And I'm going to promote my daughter's books because my daughter's an author. You probably didn't realise. And she mainly writes Gothic novels, not a genre I'm interested in personally. She does sell quite a few in Japan. Japanese people seem to be into the Gothic novels. But she had a stab at historical fiction, and she knows how much I like my historical fiction. So I was gifted a copy. And here it is. It is called The Last Skald, and she writes under the name H.V. Rees, which isn't the name she goes by. That's the name she writes under. H.V. Rees, or Rees. And this is The Last Skald. So this is, again, it's a period of history I really enjoy. It's about, Saxons and Vikings and Norse legends and set up in Northumbria and all, that kind of thing. So I'm going to do a little promotion for Hannah. Please look her books up. They are available on Amazon. I think mostly as an ebook, but you can, as this proves, order an actual paper copy. It's not to print's reasonable size, but yeah. If you like Gothic novels, or if you like very ancient Saxon and Viking history, give it a go. And that's it. I mean, goodness me, it's enough, isn't it? That's just a selection. I could think of so many other fabulous historical authors. Excuse me a moment, because my throat's a bit dry now. There's so many, and I'm sure you could come up with plenty of your own if you're interested in that genre. But yeah, I love them. It's my favourite genre, if I'm being honest. So I'll wrap it up for now. I'm going out for lunch today. I think I said, didn't I? Hence the full face. I don't normally have a full face of makeup on. So I won't be able to film anything else today, gardening-wise. I think I'll wait till next week. And hopefully we won't be getting snow, which has been forecast. And it will be a nice sunny day and I can go out and do a little film of the garden when it's a little bit quieter during the week and the neighbours are at work and everything. So have a fabulous rest of your weekend. Thank you for watching. Except doing it again. I need to put a big sticker on there going, look at me. And I shall see you in the next video. Bye for now.